Looks like the view just got real. All right, but before we get into it, I want to thank you for coming to my channel. Don't forget to hit the like button. And if you're new to the channel, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and smash on that notification bell so you can get notified of my latest content as it's released. Let's get into it. So I know all of y'all have probably saw many clips of this trolling the internet right now.
Speaking of the same Joy, the same Joy that paraded around in Blackface not too long ago. Come on, Joy, I don't think you should be asking these questions.
So before we get into that little catfight, I do want to talk about the interview as a whole and break it down because it was very dignified, very informative, good conversation back and forth, even though they were throwing some jabs at Kim Klacik. And I don't want them to try to portray that last minute or last few seconds soundbite as to try to negatively portray Kim Klacik as being unprofessional, rude, and as if that encompasses the whole interview. It didn't. All right, so let's get into this interview. So basically what happened today is Kim Klacik, who is running for the 7th District in Baltimore, Maryland, appeared on The View to be interviewed today by the ladies. And let's go break it down. So she was making a lot of great points as to her argument for why she was running for office. Let's take a look at one of those very well thought out points that she made on The View. Let's roll it.
Getting so much attention. Well, I think a lot of people can resonate with the fact that I'm just basically telling the truth. You know, we have issues in many major cities across the country. And in Baltimore City, we have over 17,000 vacant homes. We don't have career opportunities. We have a poor education system, and we have a lot of crime and violence that you can actually relate back to the blight. So we have issues that we need to fix. I look at members of Congress, and I watch them take a vacation while everyone was dealing with the pandemic and loss of businesses, you know, being laid off. And they're taking a vacation, still getting a check, and allowed that second stimulus bill to just sit on their desk. So I wanted to run for Congress and basically give people a chance to have real representation.
So you heard her say she basically is calling things for what they are in the city, how things are being deteriorated in a lot of these urban centers, particularly in Baltimore, and how the people don't feel as though they're really being represented by these politicians who are still collecting a 6-figure paycheck and going home, going on vacation for their August recess. Meanwhile, they shut most of this country down, forcing people out of work, forcing people to close their businesses that would have otherwise remained open. No, the virus did not close the business. The government closed the business, i.e. look at Japan and Sweden that kept their economy running throughout this whole pandemic without major catastrophe. So yes, it very much was the government that shut down the economy, shut people's businesses and or livelihoods down without providing them really with enough to get by in the interim. And it's really easy for them to tell people, stay home, it saves lives, when you're still collecting a paycheck. Now, Joy Behar did try to clap back, again, respectfully, in a earlier part of the interview, not connected to the little snippet that we heard earlier about the stimulus bill that was not passed. And Kim had a great response to that, stating that a lot of while they did come together in an initial stimulus package, although there was quite a bit of pork spending in that one as well. I don't know why the Kennedy Foundation needed, what was it, $75 million? What did that have to do with the stimulus? But they passed it because people needed at least some money, although in what world is $1,200 ever enough to be sustainable? For a lot of people who saw a massive pay cut, even if they went on unemployment, if you were making more than $28,000 a year, even though that unemployment was very generous with, what is it, $600 a week, that was a massive pay cut still for a lot of people, and $1,200 just did not stretch. And so they were able to sit on a second stimulus package because they saw no urgency. They're still getting paid. And while Joy did clap, well, why didn't they pass the HEROES Act? Well, Kim had a great response because fact of the matter is there was a lot of pork in that bill, a lot of unnecessary spending, and a lot of quote unquote liberal agenda items that they wanted to sneak in there and say, okay, no, this is for the people, even though it included a lot of things, and particularly as it pertains to the Green New Deal, a lot of things that have nothing to do with relief during the economic shutdown imposed by the government.
Right? I think they wanted to continue voting for the same, but as we see in cities like Baltimore City, voting for one party, that mob rule leads to corruption. And I was really offended when VP Biden said, "You ain't black. You'll have to figure out between him and President Trump." I am black, and I have to tell you, VP Biden has been in office for almost 50 years. And if you tell me that he actually cared about the black community, why hasn't he done anything for all that time?
Now, I honestly thought that Kim made a great point in her introduction there regarding voting for any one party unanimously and giving them complete control of a city unopposed has been proven to be bad because they're not held accountable. Democrats have run a lot of these urban cities, whether it be Detroit and or Baltimore, Maryland, unopposed for several decades, since the 1950s in a lot of these cases. And what happened to a lot of these cities? They're in decay, they're in free fall. Why? Because they know as a party, they'll always get reelected. And she wasn't saying that the Republican Party itself was the answer. She just said we need diversity and competition in political options in order to hold these politicians accountable and to make actual change. Because if you just keep voting in the same party over and over again, you're going to get the same results. It's like what Einstein once said, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. She was making the case that no matter the political party you vote for, if you vote for any singular party unopposed for several decades, it's bad for the city, for the town, and for the country. There was some shade thrown at her by Sunny, if you want to listen to this clip right here.
I will tell you that I was born in 1968, and black home ownership was at 41.1%, and in 2000, and now it's at 41.2%. Black incarceration was 604 per 100,000 in 1968. Now it's at 1,730. Black unemployment 6.7% in 1968. Now it's at 7.5%. So I'm not really sure what it is that President Trump has done for the black community, but I guess I'll take your word for it.
Now, Sunny's looking real ignorant with some of those points she made. For instance, incarceration rates rising from 600, a little over 600 per 100,000 to over 1,700 incarceration of blacks in this country, and does not acknowledge the fact or totally ignores the fact that Joe Biden was the architect of the crime bill that resulted in mass incarceration. After they passed that crime bill, on any given day, 1 out of 118 U.S. adult males was incarcerated, while 1 out of 17 black adult males were incarcerated. See the differentiate in the arrest rates? And that happened right after Biden passed this crime bill.
About that cadre of young people, tens of thousands of them, born out of wedlock, without parents, without supervision, without any structure, without any conscience developing, because they literally have not been socialized. They literally have not had an opportunity. We don't. They will, or a portion of them will, become the predators 15 years from now. And Madam President, we have predators on our streets that society has, in fact, in part because of its neglect, created. Again, it does not mean because we created them that we somehow forgive them or do not take them out of society to protect my family and yours from them.
Another great point that Kim Klacik made in regards to why she was running was because the Trump administration back in 2018 sent billions of dollars to the city of Baltimore that no one seems to be accountable for. And that's absolutely true. And it's like, what the heck is going on here? Where is that money? And so she wants to go in to fight, to be accountable for that missing money. Billions of dollars that are just unaccounted for that could totally revitalize the city and turn it around. They also got into Black Lives Matter. I think it was Sunny that brought it up. And she made a really good point. And this is a point I've made as well myself in other videos. Go ahead and take a look at some of those videos in the description box below. I'll leave the link where she talks about how a lot of this organization, while started off with best of intentions, was hijacked by a radical Marxist group that really doesn't care about Black lives and really has no agenda, and then was also busing people from out of town into a lot of these cities. And we see it in the arrest rates throughout the cities all over the country, whether it was Atlanta, Houston, and Milwaukee, where 80% of the people who were arrested in the rioting and looting were not even from that town. They were being bussed in to cause chaos and destruction and destroying a lot of the even Black-owned businesses. They're destroying the communities, a lot of which were Black-owned, and a lot of stores and grocery stores and pharmacies that were the only ones within several blocks for a lot of the residents, especially the elderly, who really can't travel that far. And it's been more destructive than it has been helpful. So the organization is not great, but she's all about the cause that Black Lives Matter. That was a good exchange. But without further ado, let's get into what drew us to this whole trending topic to begin with, and that was the squabble between her and Joy Behar.
That it was a very serious issue, and it's airborne, and that it was terrible. And then he went out and told the American people, don't wear masks, it's all going to go away. You have to put some blame on your president. I'm sorry. You're putting it on something extraneous here. Talk to the point, please.
Is this Joy speaking? The same Joy? The same Joy that paraded around in Blackface not too long ago? Come on, Joy. I don't think you should be asking these questions. I am.
Excuse me. The Black community had my back. They know that that was not Blackface. That was an homage. Oh, please, just answer the question.
The Black community has your back?
Now, I did a video on the whole Bob Woodward release, whistleblowing tapes that came out. Go ahead and check the link in the description box below on that video as well. I go into greater detail, but if I just had to summarize the tapes, there's really no controversy because a lot of what Trump was saying in those tapes weren't even true. And yes, he did admit to downplaying it because he didn't want to cause a panic. That's what any great leader would want to do. Never want to cause a panic. And even with the little information that they were throwing out there, what information they were putting out there, there was a panic. So he didn't want to cause a panic. That's great. That should be commended. But a lot of what he was saying was not even true. In the video, he talked about 5% death rate. That's not even close to accurate. Not 5%, not 3%, not 1%. It's more likely around 0.3 to 0.8%, which is a bad flu season. So the numbers that Trump was talking about as far as the deadliness of the virus were not even accurate, and he would have caused a panic, and none of those numbers about the 5% death rate even panned out that he talked about in the video. So had he actually come forward and hyped the virus up as being this biggest killer since the 1918 Spanish flu with a 5% death rate, and when that did not pan out, which it did not, he would have caught the blame for it. So that's my thoughts on it. I want you to check out the video in greater detail. But back to Kim Klacik's response to Joy Behar's question there. Now, I personally don't think that Kim needed to go there, but she did destroy Joy Behar with that response. But again, I don't think she needed to take it there because it detracts from everything that was said before, to be perfectly honest. But for Joy Behar to say that she had the backing of the Black community for dressing in blackface, really? Now, while I personally believe intent is what really matters the most, a person's intent. And if a person putting on blackface is doing it because they want to look a certain way for Halloween, they're trying to do a costume and trying to be as accurate as possible, they don't intend to offend anyone, I personally don't see any problem with it. It's much like with the Robert Downey Jr. Part in Tropic Thunder. I don't think anyone, myself included, was really offended by that movie because we knew it was all in good jest. It was comedy. But now we're in this triggered culture where everything is considered offensive. And last I recall, it was the far liberal left that was then demonizing the concept of blackface due to its history, regardless of the intent that was implied. And so Joy was trying to defend herself. Again, I personally agree with her in that I don't think she meant any harm in it. She didn't mean any disrespect. but it was people like her who was making the argument that you have to look at the history of the history of the thing, and they've been demonizing so many people for similar issues or similar controversies that really she doesn't have a ground to stand on because of the hypocrisy argument. So Kim Klacik really kind of killed her with that liberal left, and there are those on the far left that still really are not easy with it and they would never buy it. Well, I meant it as a sign of respect. Try saying the N-word, and agreeing I'm saying it as a sign of respect or a term of endearment, and we'll see how that works out. So I don't think that argument really stood. But again, that was quite the interesting response from Kim Klacik in her attempt to really destroy and hammer at Joy Behar and hold her accountable for the very liberal ideologies that she claims to hold, yet was in violation of it many, many decades ago in that picture of her in blackface. So overall, I thought it was a really interesting interview. Really great points made throughout. Good discussion, even though she was getting some shade from most of the guests there, particularly Sunny and Joy, of course, who were really not being honest, intellectually honest with their responses and/or the whole Woodward tapes, black unemployment, crime rate, and all that good jazz. And but I hope that last couple of seconds of the interview, because it was at the very end of the interview, doesn't detract from an otherwise very promising and bright political career and what was actually a decent discussion between women, between grown adults in the political sphere, or at least having a discussion about politics and policy. So hopefully that the discussion that was had prior to those comments aren't overwhelmed or aren't overshadowed. I want to know what your thoughts though on the interview were. Did you think that the interview itself was good, intellectually honest? Do you think that she was getting attacked, unfairly attacked, and/or criticized or held to the fire by a lot of these liberal commentators there on The View? So tell me what your thoughts are in the comment section below. And don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and a little notification bell if you want to hear more of my thoughts and/or the content of my message trying to get the truth out there. All right, so this is Bruce the Boss Brooks, and I'm out.